Okay.
But I was living in Scotland in 1939 when war was declared. So at that time, I couldn't be called up in Great Britain because I was an American citizen. So finally in 42, I wrote the embassy to ask if I could join the American Army. And they said it was too soon. There was no Americans over there, ladies. So in 44, I received a letter from the embassy saying that they were going to enlist 100 Americans living in Great Britain. And if I came to London and qualified, I could join the Army. So that's what I did amidst all the bombings and the V-bombs and buzz bombs and everything. We had our basic training in just outside of London, in Lichfield. And that was 3 weeks. And there was 2 groups of us that enlisted, and I was with the first group of 45 girls. Then after our basic training, they told us we were shipping out, and they gave us all our gear, and we ended up down on the docks. And we knew we were going overseas, but the Army doesn't tell you what you're going to do or where or anything, you just follow orders. So we got on the ship, and I can't tell you for 3 days or 3 weeks, I was so seasick, I can't remember. But when we landed at the other side, they told us to jump ashore and wade to shore. So we did that in the water and the mud, and we had all our gear on. We were sinking in the mud. And on shore were the combat engineers. They were cleaning up the beach and building highways and so forth. And when they realized we were WACs, they came out to help us because we could hardly walk. So I remember saying to them, "Where in the heck are we?" And he said, "You're in Omaha Beach in Normandy." And that was the first that we knew where we were going.
Oh, so they never even mentioned to you before? They
didn't tell us where we were going, no. Just told us to get our gear packed and report for duty. So we stayed there for 2 or 3 days, and the combat engineers were there. They were cleaning up the beach, and I don't know, it looked like a building had been bombed or something. There was wood, everything all over the place. So we stayed there for, maybe a week, and still didn't know where we were going. And the engineer said, "Well, I understand you're going to Paris because Paris has been liberated. And that's why we're building these roads higher and bridges, because the Army transport can't get through on these village streets." So we got on the trucks and we went to Paris. Want me to continue?
Yeah, or you just keep going.
That's fine.
Keep on going?
Yeah.
So when we got to Paris, they had confiscated a hotel right on the top of the Champs-Élysées. And that's where we were billeted for the time we were there. And we still didn't know what we were going to do, but they told us that General Eisenhower's group was there. He was Supreme Allied Headquarters or something, whatever they were called. And they were the only ones there, but they didn't have anyone to set up the headquarters. And that's why we were called up so fast, because we were the stenographers and the typists and so forth that they needed for headquarters. And they left me with Judge Advocate. I was with them the whole time I was in Paris. And we were there for a while by ourselves, the 45 of us. And then the girls came over from the States, the WACs, and they didn't like us too much. Because, of course, we were there first and we had the good jobs. And they called us the limey WACs. Because here we were, we had American uniforms on, but we had British accents. So we were known as the limey WACs. And if we wanted to describe each other, we would say, "Is she a limey WAC or is she a Yank?" So we tell the difference. But we got along fine after. After a while, they had the sergeant stripes, and we were just PFCs out of basic. So they took over.
So what were your day-to-day duties there?
I was with Judge Advocate, and we did typing, anything just to set up headquarters. And we did that. We worked long hours, hard hours. And right up to about Christmas, I guess. And then there was a lot of confusion. We didn't know what was going on. And we were allowed to visit the veterans in the hospitals.
Mm-hmm.
And we said to them, what's going on? They told us to pack our gear and be ready to ship out. And they said, well, our troops are being pushed back and we're retreating. And that's the first that we knew of it. And then we found out later it was the Battle of the Bulge. And at that time, I guess we almost lost the war, didn't we? It was very serious. But I don't know, after that it sort of calmed down a little.
So did you ever retreat from Paris, or did
No,
you
no, we didn't have to. Because the Battle of the Bulge, they held them back and we were okay. And we just worked every day, the USO shows. Glenn Miller's band was there. He lost his life. He was coming by plane to Europe and he was shot down. They never did find his plane. But the band was there. So they opened up a couple of GI clubs and we danced to Glenn Miller. And it wasn't too bad. What else can I tell you?
So how old were you when you enlisted?
I was 21 when I enlisted.
And then how old were you when you left? Right away you left?
No, I was there for 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah, right in Paris. I had TDY once in a while to Germany, but most of my duty was right in Paris.
So you were there until the end of the war?
Yeah, I was there for VE Day,
Mm-hmm.
and that was quite a bash. That was a celebration.
I can imagine.
And we had a big parade that day down the Champs-Élysées. I remember, I think we didn't work for 3 days. And we had a lot of parades after that.
Mm-hmm.
Because all the big shots came. We had a parade for General Bradley, and Eisenhower, of course, was there. General Montgomery from the British Army, we had a parade with him. And Churchill came. He and General de Gaulle rode down the Champs-Élysées in a Jeep, and we followed them. And it was, French people love parades. We had parades, I think, every other week in there. And what else can I
So when did you head home from Paris?
With 1948, I came back to the States. And I was stationed at Governor's Island in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And I got married. I stayed in for a year and then joined my husband. He was in Hawaii. I think I'd have stayed in the Army if they had wax in Hawaii, but they didn't, so I had to get out. And that's about my Army career, I guess.
What did your parents feel about you wanting to go into the Army?
Well, it was just my mother. And my sister had joined the British ATS, and my brother had joined the Scots Guards.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the only one there. All my friends were in the service, and it was lonely, and my mother didn't care. She knew I was unhappy, and she said, why don't you go and join the Yanks? So that's what I did.
And so whereabouts were you born? You weren't born in the States?
No, in New
right?
Hampshire.
You were born in New Hampshire?
In Milford, yeah. I lived there until I was 16, I guess. And my father lost his life in the flood hurricane in 1938. You kids will remember that. And my mother was homesick for Scotland. She was Scottish, so she packed us up and we went to Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
But then war was declared that year, so we were stuck there.
Did you feel that the war was a good thing and had to be done?
I guess so. Well, you know, in Scotland we had the air raids and the shelters and the gas masks and everything. And I thought I'd seen it all till I went to London, and in London it was much worse than even in Scotland. But we went through all that bombing and buzz bombs, bee bombs, and sentry bombs and everything.
And that was all
So
in Paris.
Paris wasn't actually that bad, you know, after being in England and that was the bombing.
Mm-hmm. How do the people in France treat you?
Oh, they liked us. They liked our money.
Yeah.
They were very nice to us. But when we landed on the beach, I thought some of them sort of resented us. You know, the Germans were there ahead of us, and a lot of the girls had boyfriends in the German army, and according to them, they treated them good, and I don't think some of them weren't too happy to see us there. But a lot of them were too.
So you said the French girls had boyfriends in the German army?
Yeah, before we got there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you feel like there was any difference in like people acting towards you being like a woman in the army, or the way you were treated?
When we first got there, we weren't allowed, we had slacks and Eisenhower jackets. And when we first got there, we weren't allowed to wear our slacks because the French people didn't approve of women wearing pants. And, but they seemed to like us. They were all, nice to us.
What about like other people in the army that kind of like you worked with?
What, the GIs you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, they liked us, I think. Yeah, we had a good time with them.
So there was a lot of women that were in Paris working with you?
Yeah. Well, there was only, the limey wax, I say there was only 45 of us when we first went there. Then the other 45 came over. And then shortly after that, there was hundreds of wax came. That's when the Yanks came. We even years later, if we wanted to identify someone, we'd say, is she a limey whack? Oh no, she's a Yank. So
And you said you did your basic training just outside London, right? Was that like difficult, or is it not too bad?
it was. There was a lot of administrative training because we were going right into headquarters. But we had to do the marches and set up our tents and all that stuff.
It must have been tough with all, like you said, the bombings were going on at that time and everything, all around.
But when we got to Normandy, the combat engineers helped us set up our tents because it was so muddy then. I don't know why. It must have been raining a lot or something. So they helped us set up our tents. They were good to us. And they even had the last night we were there, they gathered up wood and that from the beach, and they made a dance floor. And we had a dance. And they served us GI grapefruit juice. And I tell you, it was bitter. And if you were real brave, they'd give you a shot of Calvados in it, but they suffered for it the next day, I tell you. They were nice to us.
Well, I think that's pretty much it for questions.
Yeah.
And
I'm not going to tell you everything I did in Paris. Even my boys will say, Ma, come on, tell us, what did you do?
Did you feel, what about like after like you left Paris or whatever and came back here, did like, how did people react to you? Any differently, or?
No, we still had a lot of parades and down Fifth Avenue and that, because that's when they were starting to return the bodies from Europe, and we still had parades and that. I don't know what else I can tell you. It was a good life. I enjoyed it.
Enjoyed
Yeah,
it,
I enjoyed it.
Well, thank you very much for
Yep.
coming.